Let's get Roy from Massachusetts. Roy had a question and wants to know where in the Bible original sin is even mentioned as a concept. Roy, is that about what you're looking for? Is figuring out how original sin came to be?
Yeah, more or less. But don't count
Yeah.
on me not being in any kind of a concussion protocol. And the previous caller was worth it just to hear him say the word sacrifice. I think if he calls back, we can make that a drinking game. All right.
I'm with
just
you.
for a change of pace, I think I'll make this an occasion where the caller tries not to talk over the host. So I hope this doesn't throw you off. But yeah, where in the Bible is original sin even mentioned as a concept for which all of humanity must atone? I can't find it anywhere.
So it takes a little bit of triangulation. I think the first thing you have to look at is start with the curse in Genesis 3, because the curse in Genesis 3 applies to basically everything. And that's why Paul says we have the sin nature. But I think the typical justification for original sin kind of starts in Romans chapter 5. If you go into Romans chapter 5, Paul says, therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man and death came through sin, so death spread to all because all have sinned. Now, Catholics will sometimes kind of leave off that last part, because all have sinned, but this is kind of where the original sin comes from. This idea that like there has been like a tainting. And there's another passage that points to this a little bit, which gets fleshed out later outside of the Bible, which is this idea that Adam was cursed, Eve was cursed, and since all of the seeds of all humankind were in Adam, that means that all of Adam's seed became cursed, right? So if we go to the book of Hebrews chapter 7, there's a really interesting discussion on how Jesus, who is theoretically a priest in the order of Melchizedek, is greater than the priesthood of the Levites. But that part of the conversation isn't critical. Listen to how the author of Hebrews justifies how Jesus is greater than the Levites. It says, even Abraham, or this is referring to when Abraham met Melchizedek in Genesis 14, and Melchizedek was blessed by Abraham, and Abraham gave him an offering. So considering this particular event, it says, even Abraham the patriarch gave him a tenth of the spoils, and those descendants of Levi who received the priestly office have a commandment in the law to collect tithes from the people, that is, from their kindred. Through these also are descendant from Abraham. But this man, who does not belong to their ancestries, collected tithes from Abraham, referring to Melchizedek, and blessed him who had received the promises. It is beyond dispute that the inferior is blessed by the superior. In the one case, tithes are received by one who is mortal, and the other by one of whom it is testified that he lives. One might even say, this is the best part, one might even say that Levi himself, who receives the tithes paid through Abraham, for he was still in the loins of his ancestor when Melchizedek met him. So what they're suggesting is that because Levi, the entire priesthood of Levi, was in the loins of Abraham when Abraham blessed Melchizedek, that means that Melchizedek is greater than Levi. And so this type of thinking was pervasive in the ancient world, which accounts for why once Adam and Eve became corrupted, they became defiled, all of the seed of mankind became defiled. And that's why through one man came sin, and through another man came reconciliation. And original sin answers one other question. Well, more than one, but one other important question, which is, if Jesus died to take the wages of sin, right? If the wages of sin is death, and Jesus came to reconcile that, and everyone is still dying, even babies who don't sin, that means that they are still under the weight of original sin. Because if you can die, receive your wages of sin, having never sinned, then it can only mean that whatever the curse was, we receive this curse whether we sin or not. And now it's a universal curse, and you've got the curse of original sin.
Okay. and also thanks for reminding me because I hadn't been paying my tithes lately. But thank you. This was illuminating.
Yeah, fair enough. Thanks for calling in.
What is Doug's tithe these days?
Doug demands no money. However, we do have some super chats. That's right. Get stoned for Doug, all right?